You are tuned in to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. Join us now on another exciting metaphysical journey. Relax, tune in, drop out, and take a seat by the fire as we explore new realms and possibilities. This is Magenta Pixie. You can find me at magentapixie.weebly.com. But now, here is Zany Mystic and guest. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. This is your host, Lance White. Tonight, my guest is music veteran writer, composer, producer, and performer John Matarazzo, who has been accompanied by legendary engineer and producer Logan Strand to form Logical Drift. Both have worked with major acts in the past 20-plus years, from the electronica, pop, new age to world music genres, in which their success has geared them to manifest musical healing compositions that produce enlightenment, relaxation, and tranquility. Their journey has also begun to initiate a network of like-minded practices within the alternative education and new age community in order to support each other's projects through music as a unification medium. So let's meet our guest now. Let's welcome John to the show. Hi, John. It's great to have you on the show.
Great to be on the show, Lance.
Wonderful. Well, I guess all of us are kind of curious because this is a little outside of my usual show, but a lot of us are curious about your upbringing and how you were influenced and guided into a music career.
Actually, it was my father's idea to get me out of trouble because I was always getting in trouble in school. And he said, "Oh, maybe you want to study music." And I said, "Okay, sounds good to me."
Well, good.
And he suggested, how about if you take organ lessons? You know, at the time, Wurlitzer organ was very popular, so I said, "Okay, I'll try that." And so I started taking organ lessons. And then I decided, I like guitar better, so I started studying guitar and, just kind of built from there.
Ah. Did his remedy work? Did you stay out of trouble?
No, I'm still getting in trouble.
Well, good for you. I like to hear that. I also read that you began to write and compose your own music within the jazz and classical genres very early in your career, and even inked a music publishing deal. Do you want to elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. This is now we're going back a while, back into the '60s when rock was starting to happen, the Beatles, and the British invasion was happening, and people were getting turned on to music. I had a little band. We played for high school dances and stuff, and I started writing music because the big thing was to write your own material. So I started writing songs, and one thing led to another, and we started playing at small venues in Manhattan, and then I just started recording some of the things that we did, and I took them to a publisher, and they liked what I was writing and gave me a publishing deal.
Wow. Well, and that kind of segued or led you into meeting some pretty big popular acts, like Ike Tina Turner, Sly The Family Stone, and The Weather Report. Who else did you bump elbows with, and do you have any interesting stories about that time?
Yeah, well, we were, then I had a band, and we met some business management people in Manhattan. Al Aronowitz at that time was managing Bob Dylan, and, through, a number of friends, we met, and we started doing like session work and started doing performance backup work, and we got invited to do a lot of gigs and to go on the road and do different kinds of performance opportunities with a lot of these artists. With Ike Tina Turner at the time, they were hot because they had a couple of hit tunes out. Proud Mary, it was very big at the time, and so we went on the road with them and backed them up. And, so one thing led to another, and we just started doing more and more of this kind of work, and we kind of got well known for, being available to go out and go on the road with a lot of different people. With Sly The Family Stone, it was always, expect the unexpected, I guess. That's what it boiled down to. Because you never knew if he was going to show up for a show, if we were going to be playing, or if we were just going to have to do the whole show ourselves. It was crazy times.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's face it, everybody during the 60s was doing drugs, including myself. And then, of course, you have Woodstock. I don't know if that figured into your story at all or not.
Only to the extent that we had an invitation to go, and we weren't able to be there because we had conflicting engagements. We had to be in Cincinnati to do a couple of shows there, and so we just said, no, we can't do it because we've already got commitments.
Well.
But Michael Lang was disappointed, and years later I did a couple of things with him, but it was just one of those opportunities that we just couldn't do because of conflict, scheduling conflicts.
Yeah, the same here. Now, you mentioned Bob Dylan just a moment ago, and he's been kind of an elusive and very private person all of these years. Frankly, I wasn't a big fan of his during the early years. I just didn't get it. Now I get it, but how did that relationship develop? He's still around doing music today, isn't he?
Oh, yes, he is. Yeah, he's a great guy, very nice guy. He was always very nice to me. We always had a great relationship. I learned a lot from him. To this day, I have to say that a lot of the things that I know musically in terms of, traditional folk and pop music, I learned studying from him.
Wonderful.
He was always a great guy. We always had a great time together, and he always had a great sense of humor. And we were at a party once up in Woodstock, and Al Aronowitz was there. And at this time, Al was no longer managing him. Al was like his first manager. And we were sitting around with a bunch of people who didn't know who he was, and he was just saying to those people, "You see that guy over there? Keep him away from me." And that was Al Aronowitz, of course. And at that time, he was writing a column for the New York Post called "The Pop Scene," which was like the super influential column, like you wanted to be written up in if you were, an aspiring or a successful rock pop musician.
Interesting.
So it was a lot of fun, a lot of laughs.
I'll bet. Yeah, he always seemed like a nice person. Now, there's a transition that you must have made, which involves travel to distant lands and a spiritual pursuit or a spiritual journey, which kind of takes you into your current music, which is really an amazing experience. When did that transition begin, and what can you tell us more about that shift for you?
Well, I guess, I don't really see it as a transition. I was doing, experimenting with music and musical sounds when I was a kid. I was always, making stuff to play music, even making little, makeshift guitars, stretching pieces of wire and playing them and, trying out, what pitches sound like, and after that making bamboo instruments. When I was in high school, as I said, I had a band, and we were playing for all the high school dances and all the parties and stuff that were going on. And one of my teachers, Sister Christopher, I went to Catholic high school.
Oh,
she came to me with clipped out an article from the New York Times about Harry Partch, who was a composer, a serious composer who developed and designed and made his own instruments, and basically was kind of like a very innovative guy. He came up with instruments that were built around the system of just intonation, and he had done a recording for Columbia Records. And she said, maybe you'd be interested in some of this music. I started listening to this, and it was very, very different kind of music. It's nothing like you would hear like in a classical concert hall. It was based on a whole different tuning system, just intonation, which he defined as the real system of harmonization that was given to the planet Earth.
Oh, wow.
By whom he never said, but... you got the sense it was really a spiritual kind of thing with him. And I started listening to this music, and I started, making my own instruments and trying this stuff out. So I was always, experimenting and listening to different kinds of music. Even though I was still playing in a rock band and still, doing the whole rock and roll thing, I was always curious about these other possibilities of musical expression.
Ah. It's interesting that you should bring him up, because recently I've become very interested, partially due to the movie Inception, but also because of the internet information on it, that middle C was intentionally tuned to a disharmonic frequency, which was 440. And it's been recently discovered that if you tune middle C just a hair above that to 528 and match all of the octaves with that the music is an entirely different experience. It actually has healing properties. Is that something that you might be talking about?
Well, 440 is A above middle C.
Oh, okay.
But that's the kind of the compromised tuning system that has come down to us over the last couple of hundred years, I guess, for tuning instruments. For a number of reasons. There was always always issues, primarily with vocal music, where instruments that weren't tuned to a standard, let's call it the 12-tone scale, the tempered scale, always presented a problem, because if a song was written for somebody who was an alto voice, let's say, if somebody who was a baritone wanted to sing that same song, you had to retune the entire instrument, or in the case of in some cases, you'd have to build a new instrument just to accompany that song for that vocal range. So. The compromise that came along was, let's make a tempered scale where everything is slightly out of tune, technically, and so that people can, so that you can change keys, essentially. Have this idea where you can have 12 tones where you can change up, change down, E flat, C, B flat, G, whatever you have to do to accommodate the human voice vocal range for a particular song. But like any compromise, you lose something. 528 is an ideal pitch, and from my experience, it really is really centered around the chakras and the vibrations that are kind of, I guess, put out by the planet that we live on. Well, just getting back to your question, the whole idea of 440 is basically just a compromise, just to be able to make it possible for instruments and musicians to play together in various keys, primarily with the focus on accompanying vocal music. Now, historically, the whole idea of the solfege frequencies is something that goes back to Gregorian chant, and it's what do I want to say? It really was developed as kind of a spiritual healing a method. This chant was the old Gregorian chant, for example, like the hymn to St. John the Baptist. All of these things were created basically around certain frequencies and pitches that were considered to be consonant with the vibrations of the planet and with the vibrations that were most beneficial to the human psyche. Wow. But, we got away from it, as I said. We had to make a compromise because it was limiting in the sense that musicians wanted to be able to play music together without having to retune their instruments every time they wanted to play a different piece of music. So the compromise that came along was a 440 and the tempered scale. Yeah, and like any compromise, you gain some things, but you lose some things. And I think we lost a lot. We lost